Flashbacks. 5 good minutes in the clubhouse.
And welcome to Game On's 5 Good Minutes in the Clubhouse. Today, John Wynne from the Norwood Football Club, previously from the West Perth club as well. WA Hall of Famer, South Australian Hall of Famer, West Perth Premiership player, and of course, coming over here to the mighty Redlegs, Premiership player in 75 as captain and 78 and 82 as an assistant coach, Malcolm.
Yeah, welcome, Winnie. How are you? How are you, great man?
Malcolm. All good.
Yes. Jonathan Francis Wynne. Now, Winnie, let's start with Western Australia and a man who's had a huge influence on you, and not only your footy, your life, because I actually want to expand a little bit on this as well. Let's go with Polly Farmer to start with, 2-8.
Yep.
Expand. Yep.
Well, expand. Well, Paul was playing football in 56, 57, and I would have been about 9 or 10 at the time. And he was just a fabulous athlete at the time, legend in West Australian football. And it was God bless Mummy and Daddy and God bless Polly. And he was just held in such high esteem. And when he went to Geelong, half of Perth finished up becoming Geelong supporters. And I guess a lot of people still are today because when he went there. And it was a great experience after playing a couple of years of senior football. He turned out to be our coach. So it's look, a lot of that stuff still goes on today. I think where the guys who are ahead of you, who you admire, and who are your idols as a kid growing up. And there's been a few fortunate kids around that have managed to play with him, and I was one of them. And it's just like his impact on the club, such a man with humility. He's never a self-promoter. I said to him one day, Paul, you never talk about yourself. He said, I leave that up to others. So it was just a very humble, beautiful man.
And John, you've maintained a relationship with Polly right through to the end of Polly's life. And Polly suffered from Alzheimer's. Look, my mum's just passed away from it. My mum had no idea who anyone was for about the last 3 to 5 years, and it was just horrific. But, yeah, share your experiences with that side of things with Polly, mate.
Oh, when I came back to Western Australia after living in Adelaide for some 14 years, I just picked up with all my old teammates and Marl and the kids. It was... So when I went to South Australia, the kids were all young. They were all in their 9 and 10. And when I come back, they're all teenagers. They're all growing up. And we just finished up. Both our families got together, go out. It's just a great. He had a great philosophy on life, and a great sense of humour. Wonderful sense of humour. I'd get in the car every morning. We'd pick him up, and he'd say, "Have you said sorry this morning, John?" Because that was what John Howard was about. His outlook. You know, with the Aboriginals, he said they've been here for 20,000 years. You just can't expect them to change in 200. And it was just his way of life, his actual thinking. He thought differently for a fellow that was brought up in an orphanage. The things that he got up to and the way he thought. First time I ever went to the races, I went with him, and he bought 2 programs. He put one in his hip pocket, one in his jacket, and he had a couple of bets. And the bookmaker said to him, "How you going today, Paul?" He said, "I'm going no good." Well, I'm standing there listening to this. Hey, give us your program. He gave me his program and he marked it off. Went along a bit further than one of the leading trainers. "How you going, Paul?" "I'm going no good." He gave him the other program. We went and sat in the stand and he compared the trainer's program with the bookmaker's programs. I said, "Why did you tell him you're going no good when you already had a collect?" He said, "They try harder to find you a winner if they think you're losing." So So where did, like he came up with this philosophy where he was self-taught, self-educated in a whole range of things in life. It was a great experience being with him. We're on the Glass tour in Ireland, and we're on a double-decker bus, and we pulled up the bus stop, and it's got betting. Out we get. We go up to this little betting shop, grabs the form guide, and picks 7 winners. It was just uncanny. He bred horses. He had had a large on stallions and studs, the whole bit where he had all the magazines and the books. It was a great interest for him, and his betting was. He was criticised for it, but he was a small gambler in a sense that he'd pick novelties. He would go for the quartets and the trifectas. Yep. And he got some amazing results with his analytical brain. Great analyzer. He was telling us things in the 60s that they still don't do today.
You always said he was well ahead of his time.
He was. Like, don't kick the ball at him. Kick it out in front of him. Let him run onto it. Well, that's kicking the ball to advantage. Yeah. Throw the ball out in front. Let him run onto it. Well, that is not taught today. All they say is you kick it. They don't say kick it to advantage or handball to advantage. It's just he was, as you said, he was ahead of his time. And then I said to him one day there about the handball. I said, why did you come up with the handball? He said, I could win the ball. He said, but if I could give it to somebody who was 5 or 10 yards out and they could advance down the ground, that would be, instead of my kick, it'd be a kick and a half. Yep. And he said, then I could get set for when the ball came back, if it came back. So just his whole philosophy. I don't believe the Victoria saw the best of him. He played his best football here, and that's going by a couple of his teammates at the time. That when he went to Melbourne, he had to reinvent himself because of his knee. He did a cartilage in, and in those days you didn't come back from cartilages. And at a function, Bob Davis, the Geelong coach, said he was the first player to come back and recover from a cartilage operation. Okay. So there's just a whole range of things that very unique. When we were playing in the Carnival in Adelaide, and it's written up in the advertiser that morning, Farmer versus Nichols. And I said, what'll happen today, Paul? He said, John will hit me, I'll hit him, and then we'll play footy. So it was just, yeah. And he went on to win the Simpson medal in that game. So it was just, a wonderful experience as a kid growing up, idolising this man, and then spending, the later years of his life with him. Yeah, no, it's just great.
Yeah, look, we're pretty emotional on that topic as well, too, eh? Your decision then to come to the parade, thank goodness. Carmel Court, the College of Knowledge, where you were the head prefect. You think of the people who boarded there, Michael Taylor, Phil Carman, the late Jim Till and Glenn Rosser, Greg Turnbull, Neil Craig, Danny Jenkins, Neil Button, Ian Stasnowski. We go on and on. That'd be a fair AFL side, let alone, and that. Norwood was sort of ahead of its time in that regard. Wow. There, too, and Wally and Jim Balderstone side of things there, too, eh?
Yeah. Look, I think that set the stage for the future coming out of the 60s into the 70s. And what I mean by the future is that all those guys were also humble, and the humility that exists amongst them. And that's the big thing about Norwood. Wally Miller was never a self-promoter. And all the Norwood presidents, and to this day, they're not self-promoters. They're sharing, caring people concerned about the people behind the scenes, like our trainers and our administration people, our volunteers. The Norwood Football Club is an amazing institution, I believe. And if you look at our three champions, as in our greatest player ever, Gary McIntosh, Michael Taylor and Michael Aish, they've never been self-promoters, and they've promoted this humility, and it's just been what it's done. It's attracted people, not only from the for administration, but also our sponsors and people that have been around for years and have never got much praise about it, about being sponsors, and just the silent givers, like the Cradle family.
Yep.
And the Cooper family have been involved for a century. It's an amazing institution, and I was very fortunate to stumble onto it and make that call to go to Norwood. It came about because Damien Nygaard came to West Perth in 60, halfway through 69, and I thought, here's my way out of here, because I wanted to go to Victoria. And at the time, they had a thing called the Coulter Law.
Coulter Law, yeah.
And they kept Sid Jackson and a couple of players out of football in Victoria for 2 years. And I thought, what I'll do is if I go to South Australia, I can go into the back door to the VFL. So I organised to come over there. Bert Balderstein came over, met with him and Ron Kneebone, and then went over at the end of 69 after the season finished here. And there was a player swap involved. Graham Malloy went from Norwood to Melbourne. Melbourne cleared a guy by the name of Steve Arnott to West Perth, and who was still involved at West Perth today. And Norwood cleared Nygaard to West Perth, and West Perth in turn cleared me to Norwood. And
Norwood might have won that one too, eh?
Well, I don't know about that, but anyway, it was just a great experience to be involved in those early years, particularly at Carmel Court, where it was just that was an amazing experience. That was the club within inside the club, and inside that club developed the team within the team on the ground. I remember Bob Hammond there one day. He threatened Glenn Rosso. If you don't get a kick today, Glenn, you're out of the team. And we've got halfway down the race. And I stopped the boys and I said, fellas, all you Carmel Court guys today, we give the ball to Duck. So at half time we've gone in and Hamo said, you're right, you bastards, you got me. Duck had 25 kicks.
Wow.
It was just, it was just a great, you'd go out of a night, different places around the town, and you'd see one another, and everybody looked after one another. It was just a great feeling. And I think that went right through the club and the environment. And I think a lot of guys have sort of tuned into it. Norwood's a very compassionate. It's not a ruthless club. It's a very, very compassionate. Maybe we could have won more premierships, but I think, assess what the guys have gone on to do with their lives after Norwood. I think there's been a lot of successful guys that have come out of that environment, and I just think back how fortunate I've been.
I always love that you see the full picture too, Winnie.
Pardon?
I always love that you see the full picture, and not people just think of exactly as you're saying. A lot of clubs just judge any club by a number of premierships and don't see the whole picture.
Well, they're all trying to win a premiership. They're all going to do it next year, but you need to lay the foundations, and you need to recruit just as good as people off the ground as you are on the ground. You need to have standards, and I think it's a credit to Jade, the current coach. From what I understand and what I've been told, he's managed to tap into the culture and cultivate the some of the players of past to be involved, which is good for them. Good for the club, and I think that extends the tuition. I think there's a gap between people from the 60s and the 70s of how do you communicate with them today. They're not on Twitter, they're not on Facebook, but I think you can do it on one-to-one where the coach can tap into some of the past players of involvement who've got the right sort of, who understand the culture, who can help tutor the younger fellows coming through to the club. I think the Sandful and the Waffle, it's a stepping stone to the AFL, but there's a lot. I think they take the kids too early, yes. And I'd prefer them. I reckon you got a better chance if you go later in life, not 18 and 19. And I think there's they cast too much to the wind. they say that they're going to look after these kids, but I don't believe it's better. Like Keith Thomas was a very skillful player who's drafted by Hawthorn, and he went over there. Hawthorn or Fitzroy? One of the two clubs.
Fitzroy.
And I think his coach at the time was... it was a well-known...
Walls and Parkin. Yeah. Yep.
Parkin.
Yep.
And when Keith came back, his skills, they were off by 50%. And it was all more... They never placed the emphasis on the skills like we did in the environment that we created at Norwood. All the Victorian players, they're all great marks. They were better marks than what we were, but they're kicking, and their skill wasn't as good. I just think that there's been more development of the game out of South Australia because you've had the three leading coaches who were there for 20 and 30 years between Foss Williams, Jack Odie and Neil Curley, and they all had their own different philosophy. And I think when you look at Mark Williams, what Mark Williams has gone on to do with his football career in coaching, and when Mark played, and to where he is now and how he understands the game and the environment that he was out of, I think he's modified a lot of his thinking towards the game, which is great because he's evolved. Which is sometimes you get typecast in an environment and it's hard to break the mould, but I believe he has.
Speaking of skills, mate, your first coach was Robert Odie. Certainly at Norwood, yeah. Norwood. And how was that experience?
Robert was a good football skills coach. Robert went to school, teachers college, and back to school. He never mixed commercially in the world of commerce and had an understanding of that and the people that were involved in it. He tended to prejudge people, and he prejudged me on occasions, but you can't catch me because I don't drink and I don't smoke and I never have. So it was an unusual relationship. That's why, in the end, after the end of '73, I made my commitment was to go to Norwood for 2 years or not at all. And after I completed that commitment of 3 years, Paul was coaching Geelong at the time, and I rang Paul and said, "Look, I wouldn't mind coming over." And so I set the deal was set. I was going to go, and then they finished up sacking Robert Odie, and I decided to stay.
And the rest is history in that regard too. Let's go for a bit of fun. How much? And it's funny where you said non-drinker, and I reckon there'd be that many people around who thought at the time they'd be around Wynne and think, "Geez, Wynne smashed," and no, it was just Wynne was just the king, and you just played people on a break. Sam's Disco, 2-8, your involvement there.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to take over the management of that from Ron Tremaine. Ron Tremaine was an entrepreneurial. He was involved in the Festival of Arts, I believe, and he was appointed manager of the Lion Hotel in the early '70s. And he was involved in the building program, and he was busy, so he stepped down from running it. And I was fortunate enough they appointed me to run it, and I ran it on the same basis that I liked places that I like to go in Perth. So all the places in Perth that had played top band 40 commercial music, they drew the crowds, and that's what we put in. We just put in the top commercial bands. 5AD at the time were on top playing commercial music. That's what we played. We had Bob Francis as our DJ, and we ran it to a standard. No swearing, wear a tie, behave yourself, or you get thrown out.
Yes, and we can all remember going up the back stairs through the kitchen. Winnie, that was always good fun.
Yeah, well, we had our crowd controlling engineers were Neil Button, yes. Phil Carman,
Jim
Hugo Colasanti, Michael Aish. We had a fire attendant. That was Neil Craig.
Right, yeah.
So we had all the young guys who were putting themselves through school and who needed the extra buckaroos. So it was, and it was good to have them around and involved. It was the place to be on a Saturday night for the younger kids.
If only we could invent a time machine, mate. I'd love to have gone. Would have been
Great
amazing.
memories. So, to 78, and people go on and try and make out there was so much in the whole Jack Oatey thing. It was, as usual, you were just the king of bluff. You'd thought of it before the game, if there was a chance, and really not much happened.
No, nothing happened. It's like most people can't tell the difference between your arse or your elbow. So it's people just anyway. People read into what they want to believe. It doesn't matter. There was no punches thrown on my behalf. It was just I didn't have to, and it was all just "G'day boys, how are you?" And that was enough to upset a few people. So that's fair enough.
Sandy Roberts the next day on the footy show, and John, I've got to ask you about the incident in the coach's box, and can you remember your reply to it?
Oh yes, it was appropriate at the time.
I still think it's appropriate.
You never miss an opportunity to jump into a box.
Yes, as always, you nailed it. And then your involvement with fantastic partnership with Barmy especially in '82. Neil's a man's man. He's and a gentleman as well. And I can't speak highly enough of him. I caught up with him a couple of weeks ago. He's back to playing weight. It's amazing. I know.
But I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware that when I played here, he was a 16 or 17-year-old kid playing a few games for Subi, and he actually rucked. He mentioned that he rucked against Polly one day.
His first game, his league debut.
When he's a 16 or 17-year-old kid, and I knew he played for Subi, but I didn't know it was in that particular game. But look, it's great. What happens is, as you're coming through the system, everybody is involved in doing what they're doing, and years later you don't realise just how good was this bloke. How good was he? Like Greg Nicholson. Nico would come to training and he'd go home and we'd have to drag it. It'd be like pulling teeth to get him to go to a function. Anyway, years later, after all the footy's over, we catch up. And you just think, how good is this bloke? And you start to look around and you think, look at our history group, led by Michael Colligan, Roger Woodcock, and Shorey. And the guys who are cultivating...
Yeah, Winton and Graham Adams, yep.
So many people that are involved behind the scenes, and they're just beautiful quality people. It's like some of the trainers when we have a function, Mel Phillips and his crew. So they're still around, and that's the great part about it.
A couple of practical jokes. I've always loved one in particular. One night in the Red Legs Club, and you've seen Ashley Porter in the corner, and you let the word around to people, and you've slammed, thrown something on the floor, and you've gone, I've had a gutsful, bloody bears, pissing off to Port Adelaide. And he stormed out, walked out the door, and you just walked around the corner, came back in the other room, in the blue room, and there was Ashley Porter, walked out about 5 minutes later, back page of the news on the Monday, Button the bear wants to go to the Port, sure enough, for attraction the next day. But I'll give Ashley Porter his due. He took that pretty well.
Yeah, well, there's a great rapport between some of the blokes. Like over the years we've had, like Roachie. There was him. A lot of the guys from the west were Shieldsy, Alan Shields.
Yep.
So they're all blasts from the past. Most of the people
Mike
that
Howard.
saw us play in the 70s now have all passed on. You don't realise it's 50 years ago.
And it is
45, 50 years ago.
Now, Pete,
we had our day in the sun, so that's fine.
Pete, so there's one day Winnie's gone, right. Can you remember what you called us 228? Can you remember what you called myself, Jeff Wilson, and Peter and Walshy, Bob Walsh?
Yeah, the elves.
And Winnie's gone, I'm going to shout you guys lunch. And there used to be the John Wynne stand, the little bit on the side and that. And over comes Dave Parsons, the head barman at the time, and he's got this silver, plate, and it's all enclosed over the top. And we're thinking, geez.
It's got the cloche on
I'd love
it.
to know what Winnie's shouted us here.
Yeah.
He lifts it up, 3 packets of chicken chips, and 3 cans of Coke. And it was just, it was vintage 2-8.
You don't want to spoil them.
Not too much, anyway.
But anyway.
Now, back on one serious one, Wally Miller.
Well, there's not much you can't say about him. Just a beautiful man. He's when you look at when you think you're going rough, you've only got to think about Wal, and you go through some of his issues that he's had in his life, and there he is. He's still as sharp as I ring Wal every Thursday, and we just talk shit, and it's just a great rapport, wonderful man. There's nothing the boys wouldn't do for him. I believe he kept the lid on the whole shooting match, and he was just such a great navigator around issues that we had at the club at different times. Everybody kept their cool with him. He kept. It was just an unusual individual. For him to evolve into what he was at the football club for that period of time, and to still be active today in what in his life. It's an amazing story, an amazing individual that I can't speak highly enough of him.
And for people out there who don't really know Winnie and probably, hopefully getting to know a little bit more compassion just listening to this side of things, I compared John very much to Ian Chappell as a leader, and that Winnie is also the leader. He always knows everything what's still going on at the parade. John still knows everything. The care and compassion he has for everyone. Someone falls down the crack, one of Winnie's favourite sayings, or there's a player set, whatever. Winnie's even from Perth. He's contacting us, hey, blah, 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 can you go and do that? And unique leadership in Jonathan Francis Wynne. How did it become that you've effectively got known, and you're one of the very few people known basically through your number, through 2-8? Was there any particular thing how that first started?
I don't know. It's maybe, there's a 2-8 parrot, and the parrot does. I don't know whether the parrot talks too much, but anyway.
Only you, Winnie.
But anyway,
going back, mate, to your career. You captain Norwood in was it 75?
Captain the Premiership side, yep.
Yep, and obviously, broke the 25-year Premiership drought. I mean, that's fantastic for the club. How did you feel?
Look, it's looking back on it now. It was just it was a great experience. It's things you don't forget in life. There were just so many people who were emotionally involved on the day that brought tears to their eyes, and it was just a wonderful effort of all the things that people had put in place, 4 or 5 years before that, how it all managed to come to fruition at the right time, and just having been there, it's those things stay with you, and the people do too, and unfortunately, there's a number of them that have moved on in life now, but it was. Just an emotional time, and I think there's a bond between all those people that you get together. You don't get together as much as you used to, like as in the reunions and that. In the old days, the reunions would go on till 2 and 3 in the morning, and now they're home by 5 or 6. But we're all getting a bit tired. But it's a lot of. You have to have been there, I think, at the time to appreciate it. And the same as the young lads that have won the Premiership this year. That was an amazing effort.
Oh, sensational.
And they are so fortunate. They are so fortunate, those lads, that they're at the right place at the right time. And that will be with them for the rest of their life. And they've got to hand that feeling on to the next generation coming through. And the same as the guys who were around when we won the 3 together. You know, those guys, you finish your footy, you go off, you have your family and you get involved, but you need to come back. You need to get the right people back to keep the culture going. And that's the important thing, that Norwood's got a great culture, got great successful people that they call back into the fold. And I believe Neville was there this year.
Yes, I was going to add Neville. Yeah, it was actually interesting where Ben Jarvis lining up for a goal in the last quarter. And look, he struggled a little bit at various times kicking for goal. And as he's lining up for goal, it's actually, I'm wrapped he's so far out, because this is going to make him do what Neville had been trying to get him to do for 3 months, was kick through it. And he absolutely nailed it. And I thought of Neville straight away. Yeah.
Oh, look, that's all part of the culture, part of the history of the Norwood Football Club, and it's just wonderful that it all fell into place at the right time.
One quick one back as far as I'm concerned, the forgotten Premiership almost, and because it was a great game, and probably you can comment on it more than anything because of your knowledge of WA footy, was the 77 Art of Cup against East Perth, one of the great games.
Yeah, it was a lead up to 78, and we were laying because the following year was our centenary year, and the effort that the club was putting into it, recruiting people and building towards the team, was that was where our focus was for the 78. The 78 was an unusual team because half the guys never played the first half of the year.
Yeah, it's true. There were a few came in. Yeah, Phillips Noonan, Adamson.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was. But no, look, you never write Norwood off. They always come back. Great people. Michael Taylor was unfortunate that he played in the era of Barry Robin and Russell Ebert, because they had a mortgage on the medals every year. But Kingo was up there. He was right up there with all that sort of stuff.
Oh, Kingo's game, and Kingo in 80, it was farcical that he didn't win the medal in 80. And to Russell's credit, he made point one night we're doing a fundraiser with him, and he said, hey, biggest pants down job I ever got in my career was the 80 grand final by Kingo. Yeah,
Russell was a beautiful man. Loved Russell. No, we got on pretty well. Great things with Russ.
Who was your toughest opponent during those halcyon years?
I was fortunate enough. I didn't have to play on Barry Robin, and I was fortunate enough I never had to play on Russell. So they were just the standout players in that era. Trying to compare people in different situations, in different eras, and different it's hard. It's difficult. But all you do is you have your favourites, and I think those two boys were just ornaments to the game, wonderful people, and they kept doing stuff and contributing to the community well after they had their career was over. They're the sort of people that I respect and got a lot of time for.
Now, it's a state game. Is it correct? Is it footy folklore or correct? Was a state game you sitting on the pine and took extension cords with you for electric blankets? You and Malcolm Blight on the bench. Is that correct?
No. What happened there was that's when they were promoting that Sustagen, and Blighty and myself stood back. We stayed back at half time and gutsed all the Sustagen and the pineapple. I reckon we had a pineapple each and about 2 tins of that Sustagen. And we went out and sat on the bench with our guts full. And they've come down and Curly said, Winnie, you're on. I said, no, you go on. Anyway, Blighty finished up going on, and I couldn't, but not go on later on. But yeah.
Okay.
No, the heater. No, I had a heater at Football Park.
Yes.
Because they had a power point there, and it was they used to call it Arctic Park, and in the little dugout there. So yeah, I had a heater.
Heater, right.
Little
So
heater
I was
with my leather
close.
coat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, your life membership to Norwood in 1979, but obviously in 2001 you're named in the team of the century and inducted into the Hall of Fame as well.
I'm very, very fortunate. Someone out there loves me, but I don't see it as all that. But it's yeah. Look, it's I don't go there. All the footy stuff's in a box in the garage. I don't dwell on the past.
Hey, but what are you? Let's go back to now, Winnie. That's more your cup of tea. Hey, what are you though? West Perth going top as well.
Yeah, we were very fortunate there. We had a function with all that used to be known as the Cardinals.
Yes.
And we had a function for all the past players, all the old Cardinals, the guys who played at Leaderville, and we had a function there. And I went as a Cardinal. I dressed up at the Cardinals outfit, the hat, the whole lot. And I had the big car. I've never had so many people kiss my ring in one day.
I actually remember you giving me a tour of Leaderville when I was in Perth when you were coaching West Perth and you gave us a tour of the ground.
Yeah, there's a lot of. Well, I was there as a kid when West Perth won a grand final in 1960. 60. I used to go down there every night, watch them train, catch the bus down. So as a kid growing up, then finish up playing for them, which is very, very fortunate.
Look, Winnie, greatly appreciate your time. You're a legend of the Norwood Football Club. You're a legend of football more overall. We've obviously got to wait and see now. Talking about the Alzheimer's and Polly with concussion with studies, which Keith Thomas is actually involved working in that at the moment as well. With concussion, it's probably the most serious issue facing sport in general. We've just got to wait and see with what knowledge comes out there more and more. Winnie, but greatly appreciate your time. Obviously love your time with Norwood Footy Club, and yep, you were my first footy hero. Greatly appreciated. 2-8.
All right, Malcolm. Thanks for that. Thanks, boys.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for giving us some insight today. That was absolutely fantastic.
All right, gents.
Thanks,
Cheers.
2-8.
Mate, we've just had John Wynne on, and what a fantastic interview, all the way from Perth, and thank him for giving us his time tonight.
Oh, he's a quality man, John, and look, he really gets it. His care and compassion, and that, you obviously hadn't spoken to him before, Pete. And
yes.
You probably learnt a fair bit there about
Absolutely.
the man. And, yeah, look, it's just everything. And there's never anything too much out of the way. Look, I contacted John to let him know about Ben Jeffries playing his 100th game as the number 28. Mm-hmm. And, he contacted Ben. I'll admit it was probably about 12:15 that night. We'd played West Adelaide at Richmond. Ben just couldn't believe that John Wynne had contacted him, and the thank you, capital letters message through. The other half probably wasn't happy with the noise going on at about 12:30.
Yep.
But these things happen.
They do. My biggest takeaway was that he was very passionate about the current generation passing on that success and that club spirit to the next generation to help them be successful as well.
As I've said I don't think there's not that many people who truly get it. That's my term. And when he does, he sees the whole picture probably as good as anyone. Yep. And as I said, leadership-wise, for mine, he's up there with Ian Chappell.
Absolutely. And he mentioned, obviously, Aishi, Macca, Kingo. I think he certainly is in that Mount Rushmore group that we keep talking about. Fantastic.
Great man.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe.